Hello YouTube. As you might know, I'm not a big fan of incline curls, and I've even stated in the past that they are an inferior variation when it comes to growing your biceps. It has even ignited a fun back and forth between me and Geoffrey Verity Schofield because he famously loves that movement. So today I thought it would be a great idea to sit down and explain to you guys exactly why I don't like that lift and why I think that you would be better off doing something else instead. I want to make clear that this is not a character assassination. I'm not trying to tell you that incline curls are the devil, not at all. It is possible to make good gains off of that lift. Instead, what I want to do with this expose is to take it as an excuse to present the things that make a curling variation a good movement for the bicep by looking at the characteristics of the incline curl that, in my opinion, make it inferior. But before we start, since I know that some of you guys don't actually know what an incline curl is or have never tried it yourself, the incline curl is an isolation exercise that trains the bicep in the lengthened position. By putting the torso at an incline, this allows the shoulder to be more mobile and to enter a position in which the arm can move freely behind the body at the end of the negative, something that other variations simply do not offer. When you are doing standing dumbbell curls, for example, at the end of the negative, your arm, if you fully straighten it, is going to be in line with your body right underneath the shoulder. At no point does it go behind the body. By putting the torso at an incline sitting down, you allow that movement of the arm, which creates a massive stretch on the bicep. And this is this very stretch that the people who do incline curl love and why they love the movement so much. It's all about that lengthened position of the arm. Now I want to make clear that my argument in this video is not going to be that this stretched position is dangerous on the bicep, not at all. There is a simple rule of thumb to follow when it comes to bicep health and bicep tears. As long as the shoulder is mobile, the bicep can overextend because the joint of the shoulder allows it to, because it comes with it. If you know anything about arm wrestling, this is why in arm wrestling you are told that you always have to look at the hand that arm wrestle, because if you don't, what can happen is you look this way because you're trying to pin the person, but they're stronger than you, so your arm goes this way, the shoulder is frozen or it's even rotating inside, the arm rotates outside, so the two joints are not in sync, and the bicep or the bone break. It's the same for every bicep movement. Famously also, this is why preacher curls can be dangerous if you don't know how to do them, because the shoulder is frozen in space. If you overextend the bicep and refuse to move the shoulder forward, what is going to give is the bicep tendon. This means that the incline curl is a perfectly safe lift because the shoulders are mobile throughout the movement. So the stretch position at the bottom is safe as well. The only way to tear a bicep with that movement would be to stand up with dumbbells with your arms fully locked like this and then just let them overextend like an idiot. No one actually does it, so this is not my argument. Instead, I'm going to argue that this very stretched position of the bicep is actually not that good for hypertrophy. The first reason why, my first issue with that position is because once you are fully lengthened, you actually put the bicep in a position where it is mechanically weak, since it is completely disengaged. It is something that I've explained in the past with pull-ups, for example. Many people like to fully extend their arms at the bottom of the pull-up, but what it does is it disengages the lat. Now, I want to make clear that a muscle being disengaged does not mean that it's not actively still being damaged. For example, in pull-ups or with the incline curl, when the arm fully straightens, you still get a stretch on the bicep. This stretch actually feels very good. And once you are out of the movement and you rebound back into the positive, it also is, something that many people have found out, going to participate in a higher peak contraction of the bicep. So this in and of itself is not a problem because, again, this lengthened position is what allows the bicep to stretch. However, because the tension on the muscle that you feel at the bottom is of a passive nature, again, because the muscle is disengaged, it becomes very difficult to revert back into the positive to start a new rep. Anyone who has attempted incline curls knows that for a fact. At the bottom, when the arm is fully lengthened, there is no tension on the bicep, there is no momentum anymore. So for you to get to a position where the bicep can re-engage again, you have to find a way around it. And the way around it is something that I've observed times and times again, where lifters who do incline curls are going to push their elbows forward to create momentum that then allow the bicep to re-engage and participate in the movement. So you'll see them swing their elbows forth with a movement of the shoulder. Now, just like with the dangerosity of the lift thing, I'm not saying that to tell you that this is improper form or this is cheating, not at all. Actually, this is the only way to do incline curls. It's part of the lift and the nature of the lift. This is actually proper form. This is not what I'm arguing here. What I'm arguing, however, is that the very necessity to do that forward movement of the elbow to create momentum, to get out of the lengthened position is not needed in the first place, because it shows to me that this lengthened position is a mistake to start with. You will hear people, when they are told that, retort that it is this very lengthened position that we should all seek out when we train our biceps, because it is in that position where you get the most muscle growth. And if these people want to be cheeky, they could actually cite certain studies that I've read myself that prove that yes, indeed, in the lengthened position, the bicep gets the most gains. The issue, however, is that for every study that proves this, another one disproves that entirely. Just recently, for example, there was a study that came out where they took 100 men, they split in two. Half of the men only trained in the lengthened position, the only one only trained in the 90-degree angle position. So the second group did this, and the other group did this, and they found at the end of that study that the group that only trained in the 90-degree angle plus position got the most gains, while the other one got almost nothing. So you see that citing studies can get complicated, and I think that it would just drag down my argument into the ground, because it would just be a game of this study says this study says that. To me, all of that is stupid, because all of that misses the point. To me, the point is not whether or not this lengthened position is good for hypertrophy, but rather what this lengthened position does to you in terms of performance, which will directly impact hypertrophy. So, to me, the point that I'm trying to make here, and the reason why I still believe that it is best to train the bicep mostly in the 90-degree angle, regardless of the finding of the studies in relation to fiber hypertrophy, is because I have found that the bicep and its function work best within the 90-degree angle, whereas in the lengthened position, because the bicep is mostly disengaged, you are not actually getting as much work done for that muscle group in particular as you would actually think. And this is something that is often missed by people who do incline curls, because I'm sure that if I took a poll of lifters who like that movement and asked them, hey, tell me what exactly is the hardest portion of the incline curl, they would tell me that it's the 90-degree angle once the arm starts to be parallel with the floor, because this is when you start to struggle. However, mechanically speaking, this is not true. The only reason why these people believe that is because they cheat out of the bottom, quote unquote cheat, which points also to the fact that if you need to cheat to get to a portion of the lift where the bicep now is engaged and does the most work, it should be obvious that maybe that bottom portion and that lengthened position of the incline curl is not that important in the first place, because you cheat out of it to get to the portion that actually matters. Now, this does not mean, again, that the bicep gets absolutely nothing from that bottom lengthened position. But it does, however, seem to signify that most of the gains that people get from the incline curl, they do not get from that lengthened position. If anything, that lengthened position is just a way to rebound into the 90-degree angle, at which point they get most of the hypertrophy. But because they focus on the sensation, they hyper-focus on that stretch at the bottom that might only really be a byproduct of the gains they are getting at the end of the day. And the problem in allowing that bottom portion where the muscle is mechanically weakest to dictate the load that you're going to use for the lift, because since it's the weakest link, this is the part that is going to dictate the dumbbell you're going to grab, is that you also find out that this means that this 90-degree portion of the bicep, where it's the strongest, might actually be limited by that portion where it's the weakest, meaning that you end up with one or two choices. Either A, you don't cheat at the bottom at all, but you end up using a weight that isn't really challenging because, well, once you're past that weak part, you're very strong at that 90% part, so it's very easy to do, but that's the part that gets you the most gain, so now you use baby weight for it and you're not actually getting the results that you want. Or B, you use a weight that is challenging for that 90-degree portion angle, but that forces you to cheat to get to that 90-degree angle I just described. So either way, this disparity in mechanical tensions means that the load that you're using is never actually appropriate. In which case I ask, why aren't you just training the 90-degree portion angle and skip that bottom portion, since at the end of the day, what you're redoing with the incline curl is you're trying to do two things at once. I'm not even really advocating for people not to train in the lengthened position because I do believe it has its place, but don't do the two at the same time. Don't train the lengthened portion and the 90-degree portion angle at the same time because now you're getting the worst of both worlds. This is why I told you guys that we weren't really going to hyper-focus on the findings of studies because they don't matter at the end of the day. You can train both portions of the lift, but you should really focus on getting each as effective as possible so as to optimize the type of gains that the lengthened position or the 90-degree angle can get you. Now, to further exemplify what I mean when I say that the incline curl is a bastardized hybrid version of two types of curls that should really stay separate because they hurt the performance of both, I'm going to cite myself because I have stated in the past that the incline curl is a bad lift because you cannot actually grind it. It's something I've said in my tier list. And funnily enough, GVS took offense to that because he loves the lift, and he posted a video of him trying to grind an incline curl. But incidentally, by posting that video, he proved my point. In the video that you're going to see right now on your screen, you see GVS doing a normal set of incline curl the way you're supposed to do them by pushing the elbow forward at the bottom so as to create momentum and enter the 90-degree angle. And what you see in that video is that every single rep is the same speed, they seem to be the same difficulty, but then from one rep to the other, he loses 50% of his velocity, and then the next rep is an absolute grinder. This is what I meant when I said that the incline curl cannot be grinded. If you end up stopped at one rep, that ends up being a struggle. It is a bad lift for the bicep because it means that you went from reps that were very far away from failure to now rep that slap you in the face because you are at failure, and at no point did you spend any time walking close to failure because again, failure just hits you and there was no way to actually walk around it. It's just the nature of the lift for the simple reason that because you're supposed to clear out of the bottom by cheating, the weight that you're using is not relevant because the strength curve of the incline curl is absolutely horrendous. And this tends to be true with every single movement where you'll find yourself dying on a rep. One moment you're fine, then you are done. This means that you can grind. Maybe it's because we have a different definition of grinding. To me, grinding is not spending 15 seconds shaking on a rep. A grind is the ability within each set to see each rep slow down regularly without any hikes and being able to push that until you are so close that you are essentially at failure. This is not what we see with the incline curl, and this is why I said that this is not a lift that you can actually grind. But I think the best way to understand exactly what I mean when I tell you that the strength curve and the mechanical tension of the incline curl is all over the place and unbalanced, just to show you a lift that is the exact opposite. So to me, the preacher curl is a good example of a lift that actually corrects every single issue that you see with the incline curl. I'm not saying that the preacher curl works the bicep the same way an incline curl does, because in the preacher curl, if you do it properly, there is no lengthened position because the shoulder is frozen in space. So in that video you see me do, I'm doing easy bar preacher curls with 110 pounds within a 90-degree angle. So I stop when the arm is parallel with the floor. This is the proper way to do preacher curls if you do not want to get injured. This is how you do a bicep exercise taken to true failure. So first and foremost, you see that there is no swinging, right? The only thing moving is the arm to engage the bicep. Because of that, the bicep is put under constant tension. That itself is not really the point of the argument, but it's important because this constant tension means that there is a gradual degradation in force production and a steady slowing down of reps. You see that each rep is harder than the last, but it's only slightly harder. They slow down only a tiny bit. Now you will notice that once I hit failure, the rep has slowed down tremendously. But the big difference with the incline curl is that because the preacher curl allows me to rest at the top, I'm going to be able to keep going because my biceps are not actually spent. They can still produce force. As opposed to an incline curl where if you hit that rep that kills you, after that it's over because the limiting factor of the lift is the bottom portion. So if you struggle on the 90-degree portion angle, unless you start to massively cheat, you understand that the set ends there. On the other hand, if you look at the footage right now, I'm able to grind out additional reps that are extremely close to failure. And this ensures more hypertrophy because, well, I simply spend more time closer to my true 100%. And it doesn't just stop at the set and the quality of the set that you get. It also directly impacts progressive overload. By a show of hands of how many of you guys who do incline curls in their programs have a tough time progressively overloading and going up in weight. I'm certain that the number is going to be many for a simple reason. You will find that it's very difficult to progress on that lift because since the strength curve is all over the place and wacky, you end up finding that if you want to go up in weight, this means you're going to have to cheat more at the bottom with more forward elbow movement. The 90-degree angle is impacted by that bottom portion of the lengthened position of the bicep, at which point, again, I ask, why are you letting that bottom portion dictate the weight you can use on that 90-degree angle since it damaged the performance of both? So now that you've heard this entire expose where I point by point explain to you guys why the incline curl is a bad lift mechanically, why exactly do people still do them? Well, I think it's explained by sensation. Incline curls feel tremendous because the lengthened position of the bicep felt tremendous. There are many lifts that train the bicep very effectively that will never give you that sensation. And I can sit there and scream and be red in the face and tell you that it doesn't actually matter whether or not you extend the arm fully because the bicep is best trained in the 90-degree angle anyways. It doesn't change the fact that if you like a lift, you're going to do that lift. And I have absolutely no problem with that. So if you listen to my rant and you still want to do your incline curls, by all means do it, but I would recommend you do them with a cable instead. If you do your incline curls with a cable, you fix all of the issues that I just described. It fixes the strength curve because it balances out the tension at the top. Once you're at the top of the movement, at the 90-degree angle, because the cable goes further away from the stack, it becomes hard, while the bicep is the strongest. And when you get at the bottom, while the bicep is the weakest, it is easier, which limits the necessity to cheat and again corrects the entire strength curve, which makes the load you're going to be able to use much more appropriate. It also allows you to grind properly because the weight doesn't magically go from super easy to super difficult because you have modified the movement of the arm. The tension of the cable is stable throughout the movement, and it's going to make progression so much more easier. So grab a chair, grab a bench, put that like a throne in the middle of the cable station and do your curls there. If you don't want to have to do all of that carrying around the gym, you can even do them standing. Behind the back cable curls, train the bicep in the lengthened position, but again, it does it by correcting every single problem that the dumbbell incline curls actually bring to the table. And now I'm going to end this video by undoing every single thing I just explained. I presented to you objective information that you can disagree with if you want, but I think that all of this is very sound. But at the end of the day, in truth, none of that matters. What really matters is whether you enjoy the lift or not. If you have been doing incline curls for a while, I would like if you listen to my arguments, but if you decide that you love the lift, fuck it, just do the lift. Please do not let some random French kid on a couch somewhere in the Arctic talk you out of doing the movement that you love the most. Fitness YouTubers should not have that power over you. At the end of the day, we just are random men just like you. We just decided one day to pick up a camera and film ourselves talking. It starts and ends there. So, since in my opinion, the enjoyment you get out of a lift is more important than the hypertrophy aspect, and since having fun is going to provide more adherence to your training, which at the end of the day beats performance because it is more highly correlated with consistency, I believe that a lift, a bicep curl, for example, that is technically only C or B tier will outrank a lift that is A or S tier as long as it is the one that you have selected. And I'm going to leave you with that. Thank you for watching. Have a great night.